faithfully sharing insights and interpreting great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Last episode, we covered the first part of Cambridge Modern Indian History. Today, we're covering the second part. We discussed how, in the early 17th century, the British East India Company opened India's door from the sea and completed its full colonization by the mid-18th century. And the East India Company plundered India extensively and used it as a base to extend colonial influence to Southeast Asia, China, and other regions. This process caused immense suffering to the Indian people. Finally, in 1857, it sparked the Great Indian Rebellion. After that, the British changed course, abolished the East India Company, established the British Indian government, and created a group with British-oriented ideologies and behaviors. B.E. These highly anglicized Indian elites implemented proxy rule. Unexpectedly, it was this very elite class that awakened Indian national consciousness and led India on the path to independence. Next part. I'll now interpret this dramatic historical process. My narrative is also divided into three parts. Part 4, Towards Independence, Nehru-Gandhi and Nonviolent Non-Cooperation. Part 5, Nehru Family Rule, Positive Effects and Negative Prospects.
Part 5, Political Changes since the 1990s, the rise of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and India's bright prospects.
Now, let's talk about Part 4, Towards Independence. Nehru-Gandhi and Nonviolent Non-Cooperation. You might wonder, how did those Indian elites who spoke fluent English and shared British values turn to nationalism and seek Indian independence? Actually, it's precisely because they embraced the Western values promoted by the British that there's a close connection. The experiences of India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, in his youth are a prime example. In 1889, Nehru was born into a high caste family in northern India. His family was wealthy, and he received a good education from a young age. At 17, he was sent to London to study at the prestigious Harrow School. 2 years later, he entered Cambridge University, majoring in natural sciences, while also showing a strong interest in history, politics, and economics. In 1910, Nehru transferred to the London Law School to study law and obtained his lawyer's license. Even today, such a resume is impressive. Moreover, as the only son, Nehru was set to inherit the family business, truly a life winner. But after returning home, he actively promoted Indian independence. How did this transformation from a wealthy man's son to a national leader occur? The key lies in what Nehru saw, learned, and realized during his studies in Britain. Nehru observed that British citizens could elect representatives to voice their opinions in Parliament, create laws to oversee the government, and participate in national governance. In contrast, in India, although senior positions in the British Indian government were ostensibly open to Indians, real power remained with the British, who gave orders while Indians merely followed. Nehru couldn't help questioning, "We're all subjects of the British Empire. Why can you participate in politics?" But Indians can't. His economics knowledge showed Nehru how Britain economically enslaved India, with India exporting cotton, tea, and rice in exchange for steel and machinery. On the surface, this seemed like equal exchange, but upon closer thought, something's wrong. India sold raw materials while buying manufactured goods. This meant India occupied the lowest rung of the industrial chain in trade with Britain, earning only meager profits from hard labor. So, trade benefited Britain far more than India, compounded by the British Indian government imposing low or zero tariffs on British goods, enabling cheap sales that crippled local Indian industries. Indians could do nothing about this, and what infuriated Nehru more was the British contempt toward Indians. The British believed India had created an ancient civilization rivaling Greece and Rome, but it had long declined. Indians had degenerated into barbarians who should accept British leadership. As British political thinker James Mill stated, British rule over India was certainly superior to Indian self-rule. Being politically and economically dependent yet disrespected, it was only natural for elites like Nehru to embrace nationalism.
He declared it utterly absurd that India, an ancient Eastern civilization, should be bound and controlled by a distant island nation.
He resolved to change this situation. After returning to India, Nehru joined a nationalist party, the Indian National Congress, abbreviated as INC, founded in 1885 in Bombay by about 70 Indian elites who, like Nehru, had studied abroad and undergone similar ideological transformations. At its founding, the Congress aimed to secure political rights for Indians and urged the British Indian government to protect local industries. Congress members published these proposals in English newspapers, striking a strong chord with many. Of course, in the late 19th century, over 90% of Indians were illiterate and couldn't read English newspapers. Thus, the Congress's early supporters were primarily high caste elites. The ideological shift among Indian elites. The British colonizers noticed this. Experience showed nationalism, once ignited, was hard to extinguish, only suppressible. In 1899, George Curzon became Viceroy of India and decided to act immediately. But where to start?
Curzon's solution was to sow division among Indians, making them fight each other.
This allowed British colonizers to position themselves as mediators above all Indians.
Specifically by provoking conflict between Hindus and Muslims.
In early 20th century India, population was approximately 200 million, Hindus 50%, Muslims over 20%. Many clustered in eastern Bengal, so Curzon split the province into Hindu-majority West Bengal and Muslim-majority East Bengal. He hoped conflict would ensue, letting Britain profit as bystanders. Long-term, Curzon's plan did fuel Hindu-Muslim tensions, ultimately leading to India-Pakistan partition. But immediately it backfired, igniting stronger nationalist movements.
First, Bengalis were furious. Hindus and Muslims had coexisted there, but Curzon's division manufactured conflict.
The Congress mobilized people to petition the government with protest letters while organizing public rallies demanding reversal. Rabindranath Tagore, Bengal's great poet, wrote Homage to the Motherland, urging all Indians to defend national dignity and freedom.
Set to music, this poem became an anthem of India's national awakening.
Facing protests, the British Indian government chose appeasement. Curzon resigned as viceroy while provincial councils gained more Indian seats. Of course, council seats went to high caste elites, Britain's old tactic of co-opting local leadership, which proved effective. Indian elites represented by the Congress accepted Bengal's partition as fact, shifting focus to consolidating power in provincial councils, causing resistance to fade. Yet this relative calm lasted barely over a decade.
With WWN's outbreak, Indian nationalism resurged and intensified.
As millions of young Europeans went to war, Britain faced labor shortages and turned to colonies. From 1914 to 1917, 1 million Indians fought in Europe with heavy casualties, while Indian taxes greatly supported Britain's war effort. In return, Britain promised India economy like Canada or Australia, but post-war they stalled endlessly. No action was taken. In April 1919, thousands protested in Amritsar for self-rule. British troops fired, killing or wounding approximately 1,800, shocking India. Congress organized strikes and anti-British terrorism. Some British officials were assassinated, but these protests exposed Congress's limitations. Ultimately, Congress was a high caste elite party. Capitalists, middle-class, intellectuals under 1% of population. They could briefly rally angry masses around events like Amritsar, but couldn't sustain organized movements. What? Thus, Congress's pressure remained limited. Worrying Nehru, now its leader, he began pondering how to organize and mobilize the masses. As they say, the times produce heroes. Enter Gandhi. Gandhi's early life mirrored Nehru's. Born wealthy, privileged upbringing, studied in Britain, then embraced nationalism. After returning, he joined Congress seeking independence. But Gandhi's approach differed. He opposed all violence, criticizing Congress's extreme tactics. So what would Gandhi do? Advocate nonviolent non-cooperation, meaning Indians would peacefully protest regardless of British brutality until independence was won. Nehru and other Congress leaders initially didn't believe in this approach. Expecting colonial rulers to have a conscience? That's pure fantasy. But who would have thought in 1920, Gandhi launched the first nonviolent non-cooperation movement. Farmers, artisans, and small traders actually responded and gathered around him, something Congress had never achieved. What was Gandhi's magic? This leads us to the essence of nonviolent non-cooperation. Gandhi urged economic non-cooperation with colonizers. Don't buy British goods, only buy Indian products. Gandhi especially emphasized traditional Indian khadi cloth, even finding an old spinning wheel to learn weaving. Images of Gandhi spinning bare-chested spread everywhere. He conveyed a powerful belief, rejecting British textiles for self-spun Indian khadi, deeply resonating with ordinary people. Since the mid-18th century, British textiles dumped at ultra-low prices devastated India's khadi industry. This severely harmed common folks who relied on weaving for income, pushing many families into hardship. Gandhi championing khadi revival naturally drew media attention. Nehru keenly recognized this as Congress's golden opportunity. Driven by him, Congress fully backed the nonviolent non-cooperation movement. He was right. As the movement grew, Congress built grassroots networks, expanding from an elite party to a mass-based one. But the movement's success still depended on the British. So what was Britain's stance on Indian independence? Simply put, unwilling but helpless. After 200-plus years of colonial rule, Britain monopolized India's coal, electricity, steel, construction, finance, all while imposing countless taxes. By the 1930s, Britain extracted over £1.5 billion annually from India. And such enormous profits, nobody would willingly give that up. But circumstances forced their hand as nonviolent resistance surged. Post-Amritsar massacre, British public opinion condemned colonial brutality, forcing the government into compromise. The 1935 Government of India Act upgraded provincial councils to legislatures with open elections. According to statistics, about 30 million Indians gained voting rights, accounting for 1/6 of India's adult population. Provincial legislators had the authority to oversee the provincial government, and government officials were accountable to them. Since legislators, governors, and ministers were mostly Congress members, this meant Indians achieved self-governance at the provincial level, leaving only central power to be addressed. So, in September 1939, when World War II broke out and Britain declared war on Germany, Lord Linlithgow, the then Viceroy of India, unilaterally announced India's participation in the war. This infuriated the Congress Party! Governors and legislators from various provinces resigned one after another. Gandhi once again launched the non-violent non-cooperation movement, declaring that Indians would not fight for Britain, and the British Indian government proceeded to arrest all levels of Congress leaders. But the longer Gandhi stayed in prison, the stronger the public's admiration grew. He became a symbol of Indian liberation, and people began calling him Mahatma. The British Indian government had arrested him but dared not convict him, truly stuck in a dilemma. Eventually, in May 1944, the British Indian government released Gandhi on the grounds of his illness. Soon after, World War II ended. Britain's national strength was severely weakened, and it became unable to maintain overseas colonies. After negotiations, the British government agreed to India's independence, but in 2 steps. Step 1, India would first become a dominion, a special type of colony where the suzerain retained only the right to declare war, while transferring rights in domestic affairs, trade, and foreign relations to the Dominion government. Once ready, Step 2 involved the Dominion government convening Parliament to draft a constitution and establish the state as a fully independent nation. Other British colonies, like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, also achieved independence through these two steps. India was no exception. On the evening of August 15, 1947, Congress President Nehru announced that India had become a dominion, taking over all powers from the British Indian government. End of section 9. He himself became the first prime minister of the Dominion government, signifying India's de facto independence. Nehru expressed with great hope, "At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom." So what awaited this newborn nation?
My narrative now moves to part 5, the Nehru Dynasty rule, positive roles and negative legacies.
From becoming prime minister of the Dominion government in 1947 to leading as prime minister after the establishment of the Republic of India in 1950 until his death in office in 1964, Nehru steered India for 17 years. After that, his daughter and grandson successively served as prime ministers. By 1989, the Nehru dynasty had ruled for over 40 years. This record is unparalleled in modern India, making the Nehru dynasty highly controversial. Some believe they made crucial contributions to setting this new nation on the right path. Others argue that under the banner of liberal democracy, the Nehru dynasty established authoritarian rule that damaged India's political ecosystem. So what exactly did the Nehru dynasty bring to India? I'll analyze from both positive and negative angles, starting with the positives. In short, establishing fundamental political order and building an initial industrial system. India's primary challenge after independence was escalating conflict between Hindus and Muslims. The roots trace back to the Bengal partition. Before independence, the British divided Bengal into Hindu-majority West Bengal and Muslim-majority East Bengal to sow discord, planting seeds of conflict. Encouraged by the British, the Muslim League, formed by Muslim elites, argued, if Hindus can have their nation, why not Muslims? They planned to carve out Muslim-majority regions to create an Islamic state. This envisioned state included East Bengal and Punjab in northwest India. The Muslim League named it Pakistan, meaning land of the pure. The Congress Party saw this as secessionist and firmly opposed it. This ignited hostility between Hindus and Muslims. In August 1946, Calcutta erupted in riots. Mutual attacks killed 4,000 and left tens of thousands homeless. The situation became uncontrollable, making partition inevitable. Finally, mediated by last Viceroy Mountbatten, Congress and the Muslim League agreed to divide India into Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. This was the partition. During this period, 5 million non-Muslims fled Pakistan for India, while 5.5 million Muslims escaped to Pakistan, all amid horrific violence. Many people were deprived of their land, property, and even their lives. According to statistics, the partition led to nearly 1 million deaths and tens of millions displaced. The resulting resentment made it hard to normalize relations between Hindus and Muslims, with violent incidents constantly occurring. In early 1948, a fanatical Hindu assassinated the spiritual leader of the Congress Party, Gandhi. The reason was, Gandhi agreed, the partition was seen as surrendering to Muslims, betraying the homeland and its people. Even the Mahatma couldn't escape violence, showing how rampant extremist religious and nationalist ideologies had become, deeply worrying Nehru. Bear in mind, India has 9 religions and over 20 languages. If the Hindu-Muslim standoff triggers broader social conflict, the consequences would be unimaginable. So what to do? Nehru believed the urgent priority was to grant all ethnic groups equal political rights, allowing everyone to participate in national affairs, which helps eliminate ethnic barriers and class differences. In January 1950, the Dominion of India officially became the Republic of India and promulgated a constitution that established India as a democratic state. As long as they are adult citizens, regardless of ethnicity, caste, or religion, everyone has the right to vote and to be elected.
In other words, all Indians gained the opportunity to participate in politics.
In 1951, India held its first free elections, with about 200 million voters casting ballots. The Congress Party led by Nehru won 45% of the votes, becoming the majority party in parliament. When Nehru served as prime minister, selecting cabinet members, he tried to maintain balance by including Hindus and Muslims, as well as the Dalit class at the bottom of the caste system. He repeatedly emphasized that India is a secular state, adhering to the separation of religion and state, with state affairs free from religious interference, and all sects should coexist peacefully. Through these efforts, India's ethnic and religious issues gradually eased. Society entered a stable period, allowing Nehru to focus on economic development. Having studied in Britain, Nehru was familiar with capitalist development models, but didn't reject Soviet-style planned economies either. Taking the strengths of both capitalism and planned economies, he developed what's called Nehruvian socialism, tailored to India's conditions. Specifically, in rural areas, the government acquired land from landlords to distribute to farmers, improving their conditions and boosting the agricultural economy. In cities, it promoted nationalization, putting key industries like railways, aviation, energy, and production under government control, and implemented 5-year plans to vigorously develop heavy industry. Nehruvian socialism achieved some success. In 1951, India's agricultural growth rate was just 2.5%. 10 years later, it soared to 22%, far surpassing colonial-era levels. Industry also advanced significantly, especially in steel, metallurgy, and machinery. Statistics show that during the 1960s, India's industrial growth averaged 8% annually, establishing a foundational industrial system. In 1964, Nehru passed away, and his daughter Indira Gandhi became India's prime minister. She continued industrialization while reforming planned economy flaws, opening free markets and energizing private enterprise, maintaining India's growth momentum. In 1984, Indira was assassinated. Her son Rajiv Gandhi took power. He recognized the emerging computer industry's potential and vigorously supported it, laying groundwork for India's software superpower status. And fell la Lambe. The Nehru dynasty contributed to India becoming a BRICS nation, but shadows lingered beneath the sunshine. Now, let's examine the negative impacts of the Nehru dynasty's rule. These can be divided into political and economic dimensions. First, politically, indiscriminately inheriting colonial legacies while mispositioning itself. At its peak, British India controlled South Asia, even Burma, and harbored ambitions toward Tibet, illegally creating the McMahon Line as the Sino-Indian border. India should have handled these legacies cautiously to foster neighborly relations. Yet since Nehru, India never positioned itself correctly. It sought to inherit British India's legacy, dominating South Asia, controlling the Indian Ocean, and extending influence elsewhere. Thus, from Independence Day, India had border disputes with every neighbor. For example, endless India-Pakistan conflicts over Kashmir's status. Clashes erupted under Nehru. Indira Gandhi openly supported Pakistani separatists, ultimately creating Bangladesh by dismembering Pakistan. Territorial disputes with Nepal, Bhutan, Burma, and Sri Lanka also persisted. In 1975, India even annexed the Kingdom of Sikkim, its expansionist drive reaching reckless extremes. In 1962, Nehru provoked the Sino-Indian border war, attempting to seize Chinese territory, but Indian forces suffered a crushing defeat, tarnishing India's global image. Unrepentant, he massively expanded military forces. The army ballooned from 510,000 pre-war to 710,000 by 1963, with military spending consuming 46% of the budget. This triggered economic crisis and public hardship, yet Nehru obstinately pursued his revanchist ambitions. Had Indira Gandhi not imported 10 million tons of grain from the U.S. after his death, India might have faced catastrophic famine. Economically, the Nehru dynasty widened wealth gaps and polarized society. Despite post-independence progress, most benefits flowed to high caste groups, just like colonial times. Meanwhile, over 90% of lower caste populations struggled, especially Dalits, facing discrimination, resource scarcity, and food insecurity. Sobering statistics show 38% of rural Indians in absolute poverty, with 50% of urban dwellers in dire conditions. Endless slums in Mumbai, Delhi, and Calcutta testified to India's extreme developmental imbalance. Indira Gandhi did implement some measures to improve lives of the underprivileged, but she clearly saw nationalism as more effective for rallying support.
Indira instigated wars with Pakistan and annexed Sikkim to divert domestic tensions. High-risk strategies to consolidate power.
In 1984, after sowing discord among Sikhs, she earned their bitter hatred. That October, she was shot dead by her own Sikh bodyguards. Her son Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated by extremists for meddling in Sri Lanka's civil war, the price of stoking nationalism. With Rajiv's 1991 death, the Nehru Dynasty ended, its political influence collapsing. India thus entered the post-Nehru era. How would it fare? Part 6. The rise of the BJP since the 1990s and India's future prospects, which I'll now discuss. After Nehru's grandson Rajiv was assassinated in 1991, the Congress Party gradually declined, while the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, emerged from opposition parties to become the largest parliamentary party. Founded in 1980, the BJP initially shared the Congress Party's high caste base and focused on urban middle-class appeal, a strategy destined to fail against Congress. Until the late 1980s, when the BJP shifted to actively recruiting lower caste communities. In the 1991 parliamentary elections, the BJP became the second largest party and formed a coalition government with Congress. In 1996, backed by lower caste voters, the BJP won a parliamentary majority. Its leader Vajpayee became PM but resigned after 13 days due to opposition conflicts. The BJP truly consolidated power in 2014. Since then, the BJP has dominated Indian politics. So, how did the BJP attract lower caste citizens? Two ways: sharing political power or economic benefits, and strengthening Hindu identity. First, sharing political rights and economic gains. We know Congress leadership was exclusively high caste. Under Congress rule, officials mostly came from high caste families, monopolizing resources and economic benefits.
Nobel economist Amartya Sen criticized in the 1990s. After half a century of independence, half of Indian adults remained illiterate, with over 2/3 of women lacking literacy, confined to low-income work.
Government systems like basic education, social security, and healthcare failed to cover vulnerable groups. Sobering concluded that most Indians were excluded from political or economic opportunities with no way to improve their lives. Thus, the BJP changed, opening mid-high-level positions to attract lower caste communities. Bangaru Laxman, elected BJP president in 2000, came from a lower caste background. Current PM Modi also claims lower caste origins, while lower caste civil servants increasingly fill local governments. Former Dalits now serve in municipal and state governments, benefiting from BJP's pro-lower caste policies and becoming staunch supporters. Since the 1990s, India's government has followed a dual-track approach, promoting economic liberalization by opening industries, finance, and culture globally to attract foreign investment. Simultaneously, it nurtured domestic industries like software development and generic pharmaceuticals, significantly boosting economic growth. Statistics show India's GDP grew at 5.3% annually from 1997 to 2002, reaching 8.7% in 2003. The BJP maintained this approach after coming to power. In 2015, Modi's second year as PM, India became the fastest-growing major global economy. Goldman Sachs economist Jim O'Neill included India and BRICS, alongside China, Brazil, South Africa, as a high-potential emerging economy. Unlike Congress, the BJP prioritizes social equity through transfers and welfare programs, ensuring lower castes share economic gains.
This earned the BJP deep loyalty from lower caste communities.
A 2017 India Today poll showed 40% believed the BJP cares about the poor and unemployed.
How many thought Congress cared about vulnerable groups?
Only 13%. Thus, the BJP's 2019 landslide win, 303 seats versus Congress's 53, was unsurprising.
Now, the BJP's other tool for attracting the masses.
Hindu nationalism. Since inception, the BJP championed Hindu revivalism. It views Hinduism, India's indigenous, millennia-old religion, as central to national identity. The lotus on the BJP flag symbolizes Hinduism. In 1989, the BJP adopted one nation, one culture, one people. The culture being Hindu as essential for national unity. This proved powerfully resonant.
Hindus constitute 82% of India's population, providing broad support, especially among the masses.
Compared to elites, ordinary people are less receptive to Western civilization and more attached to traditional cultures, like Hinduism. Since Nehru, Congress has championed secularism without emphasizing religion, while Islamic fundamentalism has spread to South Asia. This heightened Hindu insecurity allowed the BJP to position itself as Hinduism's defender, gaining widespread Hindu support. However, the BJP's aggressive Hindu nationalism has provoked widespread resentment and anxiety among Muslims. Muslim-majority regions include Uttar Pradesh in the north, Assam in the northeast, and Kerala in the southwest.
Facing aggressive Hindus, they've resorted to extreme countermeasures.
Recent violent clashes in these areas cast shadows over India's future. The author notes, despite achievements since independence 70-plus years ago, India still struggles with political reform, poverty, and religious ethnic tensions. Yet India has a demographic advantage. 31% of its population is under 15, Asia's highest youth proportion. If education and equitable opportunities reach this generation, India's future holds transformative potential. That concludes Cambridge Modern Indian History. Study notes are below. See you next time.